Magic in Madrid, a wobble by Arsenal, Rafinha's day in Paris, plus we end with this weekend's predictions. Full-time roundup starts right now. Welcome in, everybody. Hope you are having a wonderful Thursday. Me and Harrison are on the sticks right now, about to break down all the Champions League action that happened this weekend or this week. So Harrison, you are on the betting show usually with me. You've made a few appearances on Full-Time Roundup, so welcome to being a reoccurring guest here on the show.
Yes, sir. It's great to be here. Some eventful games in the Champions League this week, so I'm excited to chat about that.
Yeah, I texted you. I said it might be early, it might be an early one. It might be your second appearance, but wow, they made it very easy for us to talk about. And so we'll go ahead and get started here. That might be the best Champions League slate in from like start to finish that I have ever watched in my entire life. There's like certain games that have been just instant classics, but if we're talking, all 4 games put together, that's the highest quality of football I've seen, I think, of all time.
I mean, it's just like the games that you need, or as fans, we want to show up the most. You think of the teams, Madrid City, PSG, Barcelona, like teams of those names, that caliber. You just want amazing games as neutrals. And that's exactly what we got. Arsenal Bayern also. Like when it comes to games where there's big names, big players, you just want great games. Honestly, you don't want stinkers. You don't want to fall asleep on the couch while you're watching the game. And we didn't get that in any of those games. And frankly, Atletico Dortmund, if you're going to pick one that would be, I guess, slightly less, not as big, I guess. Even that was a great game and it came down to the wire. So, we were blessed with some amazing football this week, some amazing goals, which we'll get into. It was a thrill to watch just as a neutral fan.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And I mean, just with the first legs being so good, it's going to be really hard to relive that hype for the second legs. But I feel like how these matches ended, get the popcorn out because a lot of these ties aren't even close to over. We're only getting started here. So let's go ahead and jump right into, you mentioned Atletico Dortmund. Let's go ahead and jump into that game. So Atletico hosts Dortmund at the Met, as you said on our betting show. Check that out. That we dropped on Monday, as we dropped for the full weekend slate. We might mention a couple of our bets here on the show at the end if we have time. But yeah, Simeone's men go 2-0 up in the first half, and Dortmund looked completely lost. And Terzic game plan scrapped out the window. It's a terrible game plan to begin with against Dortmund's back five, and they did respond. Credit to them in the second half. Completely different second half. They ended up getting a goal back, giving them a lifeline in the leg, and then at the last second, Julian Brandt header off the crossbar. What a brutal way to end that football match.
Yeah, and this feels like a common theme that we saw this week is that just swings in momentum. Like, I mean, the first half was all Atletico, and Dortmund looked so lost. I mean, and the mistakes that Dortmund were making were horrific, absolutely horrific.
The Kobel giveaway, oh my goodness.
The Kobel plus Ian Maatsen just shamble show at the back. I was like, oh my God. Also, still not used to Rodrigo de Paul having long hair. Anyway.
The blonde tips.
Yeah, and, like, I'm just used to him just being a badass with a buzz cut at the World Cup, like, that just lives in my mind, so, him now, like, trying to be like Griezmann almost, it just, like, geeks me out a little bit, but, uh, yeah, and then, uh, I believe it was Hummels on the second goal, like, just an absolute shit show at the back in the first half, and then Dortmund just started to gain momentum, started to create chances in the second half. Haller with a really good finish. I just wish that he would be able to stay healthy because we saw what he could do at Ajax. He was so lethal. Um, so yeah, that Brent header, I almost shit my pants when I saw that. Also, Bino Gittins hit the crossbar too. So it's not like Dortmund didn't have their chances in the second half, but they certainly made it real interesting heading back to the yellow wall.
No, they certainly did, and they're great. They're great at home. So that is, getting that goal in the 80th minute was so crucial. They probably should have walked out of there with a point. Um, and you know, I was talking with a Dortmund fan who's a good friend of mine, and I was texting him in the first half. I said, "Oh God, this could get ugly fast." And the fact that they were able to scrap the game plan. I mean, you see Sven Bender beefing with Simeone on the touchline. I don't know what that was about. I'm gonna
Terzic.
have no. It was I
Oh,
thought it
oh,
was
oh, oh.
Sven Bender. He was
Oh,
like
oh, oh.
kind
I
of
thought it was Terzic.
squaring up Simeone, and Sven Bender was like a center back, hard nosed center back in Germany for a long time. But I still think Simeone could beat his ass at
Oh, dude.
55, 57. You don't mess with Simeone. I mean, that guy
No.
is crazy. And you mentioned Rodrigo de Paul. I feel like Rodrigo de Paul has summoned like Simeone energy, like from back in his playing days. Like both Argentinian, both the like hard nosed midfielders just get stuck in. I love like the comparison between the two. Um, but yeah, this was probably the most boring, I guess you could say, tie, and it was still a great game. If I'm Atletico, I'm probably a little frustrated that I let Dortmund back in the game in the second half because it was all Atletico in the first half, like we mentioned. But yeah, do you think that, Dortmund are going to be able to flip this tie on its head in the second leg, or do you think that Atletico should have the experience and know with all to kind of see this tie out?
Going into it, I expected Atletico to go through just because even though both teams are pretty inconsistent, I think that Atletico, if I had to pick one, would be a little the more consistent of the two. Um, but man, the flips and momentum of that game today just I don't it left me not quite sure anymore. Even though Atletico got the win, obviously it's only a one goal game and anything can happen back at Dortmund. So I know that they'll be riled up at home. It might be a tough atmosphere for Atletico, and I don't know how many chances they're going to be able to get when Dortmund's going to be going at them the entire game. I expect Dortmund to have the ball the majority of the time while they're chasing the goals. So, uh, oh man, I'm not too sure about Atletico anymore. Just because what I saw from Dortmund in the second half, if they can replicate how they played in the second half, it's going to be really hard for Atletico on the road. So, um, I know Dortmund probably wishes that the away goal was still in effect because I could totally see them like just getting one, honestly, next game because I know Atletico is going to park it. Simeone is going to have them grinding defensively and hoping that Griezmann can hit on the counter. So, um, yeah, I'm not. I don't know about Atletico anymore. I'm a little nervous for them, um, but it should be another fun one back at Dortmund.
Yeah, if if Dortmund played the way they played in the second half, the whole game, they probably would have won it.
Yeah,
And Terzic went with a very rigid midfield. I felt like to start the game. Obviously, Fulkrug has been starting most games because Haller just with all the stuff he's been through. Um, he just had a tough time playing football and the cancer and then the injury right after the African Cup of Nations. But I think he's a must start. I think, the Nemecha, Sean, Sabitzer midfield, that's too rigid. I think you either start Nemecha with Sabitzer or Emre Can. You choose one, and then you got to play Julian Brandt. Julian Brandt completely changed this game with his creativity in the midfield. And he was, at the fulcrum of every chance that Dortmund had. I know he has been sick, so like that's probably why he didn't start. But if I'm Terzic, I'm definitely starting Brandt. I'm going as attacking as I can get, and I'm not waiting to the 75th minute to put Jamie Bino Gittins in. I'm making subs early in the second half. I'm even throwing a Marco Royce in the 65th minute to go change the game. So we'll see how they set up in the second leg, but I'd like to see a very attacking Dortmund side, and I think the second leg will be a little bit more cagey than we saw in this one. But I think it should still be a great game. Since we touched on Atletico and Dortmund, I'll go ahead and touch on the other game that happened yesterday, which was PSG Barcelona. We saw talks about Lucho saying, no, I'm Barcelona's DA. I played the best Barcelona football before, which is, Lucho is an interesting character to begin with. Yes, he did win everything at Barcelona. He coached the Spain national team. So he has plenty of experience with these players. But wow, I mean, Barcelona are up at 1-0. Looks like a Xavi masterclass, and then PSG come back in the second half, kind of like the other game we just talked about. It was a tale of two halves, but it only lasted 20 minutes as PSG banging two immediate goals after halftime. Barcelona are absolutely reeling, trying to save a point here, and then the subs made the difference. We haven't seen Pedri much all season, and this kid's 21 years old, immediately subs in and changes the game with an absolute dime to Rafinha, who scores 2 goals, hasn't scored a goal in the Champions League all year, and scores 2 goals. And I just have to, me and Matt love to talk about Roy Hodgson's calls, or Ray Hudson's calls. And me and you always used to do this back in high school.
God,
but he goes, clean as Neutrogena. Who shot it? It's Rafinha. What a call that was. I don't know if he had that written down before or that just was top of mind. But I was like, all right, I'm writing that down. And then he's like, he graced the ball like a bouquet on the field as he's passing that.
Yeah.
The weak foot just over the top. Perfect run by Rafinha. And what we haven't seen from Rafinha is that clinical, final product. And he showed up today in a big way when Barcelona needed him most. And then obviously I mentioned subs changed the game. Then Xavi subs on Andreas Christensen, and then he scores immediately. So, a masterclass of substitutions by Xavi, and this match is it's tied, right? No, or is PSG down?
3-2.
3-2. So Barcelona is in the lead here, going back to home, and PSG are going to have to come up on the front leg in the second leg.
Yeah. A wild first 5 minutes of the second half. The way that thing flipped on its head was unbelievable. Dembele just absolutely roofed one, smoked. That ball was absolutely smoked from Dembele off his left foot, I believe.
He was so due.
Yeah, and a little revenge goal for him. I'm sure that felt a little nice. And then a pretty goal for Vitinha, nicely tucked away. But like you said, Pedri makes such an impact when he comes on. He's so talented. You just hope that he and Gavi can stay healthy together because they are so dynamic in the midfield for Barcelona. And that ball over the top was an absolute peach. Like one of those balls that you just marvel at from Daniel Brackett back in like senior year of high school. Just one of those, just an absolute beauty over the top. And it didn't look like Rafinha caught it all that nicely, but I think actually it was a pretty good finish. Like, I mean, that's a tough ball to handle out of midair, on the run, almost like volleyed it from behind him, it looked like. So that was an impressive finish, and then the Chelsea man, Andreas Christensen with a little winner. So yeah, this game was wild. I saw Xavi after the game say that he thinks that PSG are still the favorites in the tie, and I was like,
Gamesmanship.
yeah, I was like, I mean, all right, dog. But yeah, it should be another fun one back at Barca. And this game, among the others, was just thrilling, to be honest.
Yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned it, on our betting show or on the podcast with Matt, but I talked about how this tie back in like 2017, 2018 when we were still in high school was just like the most
Oh,
insane tie of all
oh,
time, and it has lived up to its hype. So like I feel like the second leg is not going to be cagey like Dortmund and Atletico. I think this is going to be a wild time. We're going to see more and more goals. I love to see Pedri start and see him and Frankie and Gundogan back in the midfield. Sergio Roberto was fine, but obviously Pedri is one of a kind. He's just so good. I'm so glad we got to see him on a big stage, show his quality week in, week out like he has been. He's been injured because he played like 1,000 games of football last year, which was completely Barcelona's fault there. But I wanted to highlight a couple other performances. I think Kylian Mbappe didn't have an off game, but he wasn't his usual self. So I think that he's going to look to really stand out in the next leg. I think that Dembele finally getting that monkey off his back in terms of just like a consistent performances. I thought he had a good game. And then Paul Kubarsi, the 16, 17-year-old, was an absolute rock for Barcelona. And it's, I mean, we've seen him do it in La Liga all season, but I was really interested to see how he'd cope against Mbappe, Goncalo Ramos, uh, Asensio, all those kind of top attacking talent that PSG has, and he passed and checked all the boxes for me. His distribution from the back too is just incredible.
yeah, he's lights out. He's only 17. He's gonna be really special. And if you get him and Araujo going together, like I mean, that's a really solid center back partnership. I mean, we talk about him and his passing ability as a center back, but I mean, Araujo had a couple huge defensive plays in the second half. Also, I mean, Barcola was free down the side a couple times. I think he hit the crossbar once, and then he was once in on Ter Stegen out of nowhere. Araujo came in and slide tackled it and blocked the shot. So, yeah, if you get those two going together, Barcelona's already in great form right now. You want to see them finish the La Liga season well, but also this Champions League campaign if they can get things done back at Barca. Who knows, honestly, what this team can do because they've been a little inconsistent throughout the year. They're starting to find their footing. I don't know. They could be a team to watch out for just because you don't really know what you're going to get, but their potential level is so high that you just wonder, what can this team do? I mean, we didn't see much from Lewandowski. He had some good hold-up play, I think. And he had that one that, Mensch cleared off the line. But I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited for this Barca team. I think there's a lot to build from. Obviously, as you mentioned, we didn't really see a lot from Mbappe, which is a little scary for the second leg for them, I think. Like you expect him to be just an absolute dog the second leg. So yeah, it's setting up for a really good second game here.
Yeah, and you mentioned Nuno Mensch. He was one of the best players on the pitch tonight at left back. I mean, he's a freak athlete, just bombs up and down that left flank and then made some, I feel like he gets a lot of credit for his attacking ability, but I thought he made a couple really good defensive plays as well on the break when Barcelona were kind of breathing down PSG's neck. So I wanted to mention that. But do you think Barcelona are going to be able to hold on?
I'm gonna lean yes, just because as much as Mbappe will probably wake up, you just don't know what you're gonna get from PSG. Like they played they played this exciting game, but then they lose last week 1-0 to some random Ligue 1 team, and you don't know what
They
team you're
tied,
gonna
but
get from
yeah, it was
or
still
tied. Sorry, you're right. They scored late to tie it, but You don't know what you're going to get from them sometimes, I feel like. And with the way Barcelona's playing, I lean Barca.
Yeah, and just seeing Barcelona getting back to full health, it just makes me want to see Xavi at the helm for one more season just to see what he can do with the full squad. He's just been dealt such a shitty hand at Barcelona. And obviously sometimes he does leave a little bit to be desired on the tactical side of things. But when they get healthy and he has Pedri out there, it seems like that whole Barcelona team is transformed, which makes me a little bit disappointed as just a neutral. But we'll get to the games that happen on Tuesday now. We'll start with Arsenal versus Bayern at the Emirates. I've been gassing up a little bit on our socials the Arsenal back line, and they had themselves a howler against Bayern, a terrible giveaway by Gabriel to start the first goal, and then Sane just absolutely waltzes through the back line in terms of the second goal to get the penalty for Harry Kane to inevitably put in the back of the net against his arch rival in Arsenal. But thank God, Leandro Trossard, one of the best super subs of this season, if not the best, comes on again and saves Arsenal's bacon. Do you think this tie is now leaning towards Bayern since it will be at the Allianz Arena, or do you think Arsenal are going to be able to kind of bounce back here?
I expect Arsenal to bounce back, but this almost feels like my thought now is Bayern wins in like extra time or PKs. That's what I think. I think it'll be unlike the first one. I think the second one will be a lot tighter. I feel like just in terms of caginess, in terms of Arsenal being stronger at the back, because God, they were wide open a couple times, and you don't see that. You haven't seen that very much from Arsenal in the Prem. I mean, Sane's run was unbelievable, but the defending was horrible. Like, I don't really know what to make of that run, to be honest. Like, he's always been extremely talented dribbling the ball, but he went from midfield to into the box, just not touched once. Like, you need to see some physicality. You need to see somebody take him out at least before he gets into the box like that. You mentioned Harry Kane. God, he loves to score against Tottenham.
He does.
I know he absolutely relished that, but yeah, it was an impressive performance, I think, from Bayern. Like, you don't know what you're going to get from them, especially on the road against one of the strongest teams in the world. And you just, with their form going in, you really don't know what Bayern you're going to get, just because they got hot for a little bit, then they lose to Heidenheim, and people are losing their minds a little bit. But it was impressive to see the way that they battled on the road. I mentioned Kane relishing in a goal. How about Serge Gnabry relishing in a goal against Arsenal? So, yeah, a couple former guys just getting it done against their both arch rival and their former team. So, I lean Bayern back at the Allianz, but it should be another excellent second tie.
Yeah, and I saw a commercial just when I was watching some games yesterday, and it was the guy's getting his haircut and he's thinking about betting on the NBA playoffs, and whatever the bald guy goes, it's the playoffs, veterans, and
It's a Prize Picks commercial.
Yeah, and all I could think of was, Bayern have been a disgrace this season, and Tuchel has been just as bad as Bayern has been. But at the end of the day, they have the resume, they have the experience, and they showed this in the Champions League against an Arsenal team who doesn't have much experience in the Champions League, never won a Champions League, as Matt mentioned on the last show. And so even though Arsenal are the better side, almost every single time that they play, they still showed that inexperience a little bit, and you saw the cracks when it mattered the most. And so I'm a little bit concerned for Arsenal that maybe this bumps off their confidence a little bit, especially as they're challenging in the Premier League too. Are we going to start seeing cracks in this Arsenal team throughout the end of the season? We'll have to see. But it didn't exactly make me feel warm and fuzzy. The last fixture against Porto wasn't exactly convincing, you could say. But the fact that Bukayo Saka opened up the score and they were 1-0 up, and they could have just see the game out and then just give up 2 goals back to back. Just concerning for Arteta's men.
Yeah. I don't know about I don't necessarily know about confidence because the game did finish 2-2. So it's not like we necessarily can write them off. I mean this tie is still all to play for. I do just think maybe it was just a poor game defensively, and that's what we charted up to. Just bad defending in certain moments, to be honest. I mean, the Sané goal, you don't let him run from midfield into the box. Like that's just something you don't do. So I think maybe a couple brain lapses, and we'll see if that does carry into the rest of the Prem this year and the second game. But I don't know. I think I chalk this more up to a really solid bounce back game from Bayern. And that more is what Arsenal, I think, should be worried about is a confident Bayern team back at home. Because you know that the Allianz will be going. They haven't had much to play for. So I think they're more concerned about, you know, keeping their head and making sure that things don't get out of hand back at Bayern, because I think that Arsenal, they're a confident team. They know they're a strong team. So I'm not worried about them confidence-wise. I just think that it's more what they should be worried about is if Bayern get back to being a strong team, because they are Champions League giants. I mean, we say they play in a farmers league, and that we say that, you know, they haven't had anything to contest with for years until this season when Leverkusen comes in and don't lose a game. So this is all that Bayern's playing for. And, you know, if they can ride that confidence in the second half into the second game, then Arsenal should be a little worried.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. And so it'll be interesting to see how this tie figures out, and I'm super interested to see after the second leg how, you know, Arsenal and Bayern fans feel, just depending on who crashes out and how it happens. Now, save the best game for last because you got to. And Real Madrid at the Bernabeu versus Manchester City was one of the more wild games I've watched. I mean, the lead changes, the ties. One team goes up, one team equalizes, and then answers again. Bernardo Silva opens up the scoring here, and this game was a tale of 2 backup goalkeepers just having pretty rough days because to concede that early on a really not great free kick. Andre Lunin should probably do a little bit better there, but then Ortega kind of should do better with Real Madrid's goals, and I felt like Manchester City for the first time this season, it was just shown that without, you know, Kyle Walker and without some of their veteran guys back there, that back line with that high line is pretty vulnerable, and Rodrigo and Vinny were having a field day with it.
Yeah. Yep. That Rodrigo goal was so reminiscent of a goal that Vinicius scored at City. I think it was the last time these two were in last year. Just a ball in behind, and there he goes. So this game was the quality of the goals was just outstanding. I mean, we say Camavinga's goal was deflection. We'll count that as an own goal, but the goals in the second half in particular. I mean, I want to talk about those because
worldies.
Firstly,
3.
I mean, 3 absolute worldies. Foden, top left. He's a psychopath.
He's done that so many times on his left foot. Like, I don't think he has a weak foot, but he's cut in and then just banged them in like all season long. It's insane.
The way he got that ball like out from beneath his feet so quickly and got the finish off was just pretty like remarkable. He took his first touch so quickly, and before you knew it, it was in the back of the net. And Vardiol, are we doing that now?
I didn't know he had that in his locker. Especially they were kind of on at the end of the game. They were making fun of his touch during the interview with Thierry Henry, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean that might be the best bad touch I've seen made up with an absolute screamer." It was. I did
Yeah.
not know he had that in his bag at all.
Yeah, that was a stunning way for him to score his first goal for City. That was I was like left on the floor after that. And then Federico Valverde, that's an unbelievable volley on a crossfield ball. I mean, just the way he's able to finish into the bottom left corner. Extremely impressive, extremely exciting game. This is all with no Kevin De Bruyne. We didn't even see him because he was sick, apparently. So, yeah, as a neutral, this was the cream of the crop in terms of games, in terms of watchability, in terms of skill on the field. And I'm just hoping that we get another outstanding second game because, again, still all to play for here. Similar to all the others, you don't really have a clear result for either one. So, yeah, the Bernabeu was rocking. This was an outstanding game.
The top on for the crowd, and you could probably hear the noise. Just it was one of those nights, and this could have been, realistically a Champions League final, to be honest, just
Mm-hmm.
from the base of the quality, probably the highest quality of the entire 4 games was this one. And the fact that City were able to still to grab a point, you mentioned, with no KDB, with no Walker, with a couple more players missing, I feel like at the Etihad with Kevin and co, Walker will have an answer for Vinicius or Rodrigo. So I do see City still winning this tie, but this was a good chance for Real Madrid to go up and just to smash one at the Bernabeu and try to hold on at the Etihad. And now this tie is completely open heading back to the Etihad, and I really don't know which way this is going to go. I lean City though for sure.
Yeah, I lean City too. It's such a God. That's such a. I don't want to say it's fortunate, but it's just such a blessing for City. They have the depth they have and the talent they have. I mean, you don't have one of the best right backs in the world. You don't have the best midfielder in the world, in my opinion. And you still go on the road in one of the toughest environments and pull out a 3-3 draw, and you have all to play for back at home when you get those guys back. So, yeah, Pep should be happy about that, I think, because he knows that he just has to make some adjustments and he's able to put players in that weren't able to play before, to world-class players. And, Eileen City as well, just with that talent coming back, with the adjustments and the coaching ability of Pep. I mean, not to say anything bad about Carlo Ancelotti because he's an excellent coach as well. But yeah, with the talent coming back, I just think that I don't want to say the Etihad will be rocking because I don't know if it's ever been rocking, but maybe for Aguero and that I'm not 100%, but yeah, it should be an outstanding game. And I like you said, I think City are just a little more talented, which is what I'm basing my prediction off of. But it could still go either way.
I do think that Real Madrid just have that little bit of something that not many teams
They
have,
do.
though. So like you can never count them out in any tie or any game just because they do it. They come back from these insane lead or down and win games that they shouldn't win, and they've done this for the last 5 years, every single year in the Champions League. So by no
We've
means are
seen
we
them.
saying, "Oh, what are
We've
you
seen
saying?"
them pull. We've seen them pull so much shit out of their ass the
I don't get it.
last couple of years. That's why I have no idea. That's the only reason I lean City is based on talent. But with the Champions League recent history, you don't know what you're gonna get from Madrid. God, they could win the next game 2-0 and be like, "What the hell just happened?"
Yeah,
But
and
I
these
don't
are
know.
against the Champions League winners too. So it's
Yeah,
like you have the ex-Champions League winner looking to repeat, which I think Real Madrid has done in the most recent history, and then you have Real Madrid with all their history, and they just, when there's a will, there's a way, and they just find that extra gear every single time. So this fixture at the Etihad is going to just produce fireworks again, and we should be treated to an absolute beautiful match at the Etihad. Now, I wanted to get to a few storylines before we go ahead and we can we wrap up with predictions here. So just a couple things we saw throughout the week. Bayer Leverkusen, if they do win this weekend, they will clinch the Bundesliga title, which would be a remarkable story. And I'm really hoping that they do it. They do play West Ham today at home, which is going to be a tough game, I will admit. I think David Moyes and I'm really interested in seeing Xabi Alonso against a Premier League team, and I don't know if they get it done against West Ham today, but I think that they do play Werder Bremen at home this weekend, and they should be able to clinch that game to clinch the title and hoist the trophy. And if they don't, they're still going to win. We all know that, but still, it'd be nice to do it early so they can kind of focus all their eyes on the Europa League ties and the
Yep.
Polkai.
Yep. It's just been an awesome story. It's been really fun to watch. We had the early season success of Victor Boniface, who came out of nowhere, and even as he's gone down, this team just hasn't stopped. Florian Wirtz, this guy is sick. This guy is nasty. It's been really cool to see somebody other than Bayern succeed in the Bundesliga. I mean, Leverkusen proving this year that somebody else can win, because we know Dortmund felt the pressure last year and they should have been the ones holding the trophy at the end of the day. But I'm happy for Xabi Alonso. I know you're probably happy because next on his plate could be Liverpool next year, and I don't want to say that it's necessarily going to happen, but the odds definitely lean that way. But it's honestly just for me, I think it's happy to see somebody else in the Bundesliga be able to win the trophy, because we know it's been Bayern's for years and years and years on end. So to see another team have success and the manner in which they've had success, not losing a single game, it's been incredibly impressive. And to do it this weekend, have the chance to do it this weekend in front of their home crowd, would just be an absolute stamp on what's been, just an unbelievable season.
Yeah, one of the best seasons in the Bundesliga for sure. Just in terms of just how many games won, 41 games now, I think, unbeaten. So we'll see if they can continue that streak in Europe as well as this weekend. Just another couple funny storylines. Mancini from Roma fined 5K after beating Lazio, goes and grabs the flag with the Lazio flag with a rat on it and just absolutely is hoisting this around. It reminds me of when Baker Mayfield in Oklahoma planted the flag on OSU's 50-yard line, kind of like that kind of banter. So I think that's the best 5K fine you could ever get, because totally worth it to wind up your arch rivals. But I just wanted to mention that because that was top class banter.
Yeah, no, that's elite. That's what it is elite. But
that's special.
I also saw that is extremely special. The Roma fans basically started their own GoFundMe for him. and they paid his fine. I think they collected his fine was like 5,000 euros or whatever it is, and I think they collected like 8,000. So
wow,
I think Mancini's in good hands. The Roma fans got him. So yeah, that's elite trolling from Mancini. I don't know. It's good to see this. Honestly, I love seeing this kind of stuff in rivalries. It just shows like the bad blood between teams and their histories and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you see it a lot in American sports when we have big rivalries and stuff like that. But to see it overseas is a little different, just because I feel like at the end of the day, there's always there's new players on every team. Like, you're never going to get the same bad blood that you would have with players who have been there for a long time. So to see this kind of stuff is one, comedic relief, but also just enjoyable as neutrals. So that it creates matchups in the future that feel like maybe the games mean even more than they already do.
Yeah, and you see Daniela De Rossi, the coach, probably enjoying that win big time over Lazio, as he was a Roma player for as long as I can remember. And I saw on another podcast that I can't remember what it was, a Serie A podcast. I saw a clip of it, and he goes in after probably one of his biggest wins of his managerial career, and he doesn't take a single bit of credit for the game. He says all he's focused on is his players. And for such a young manager who's who came on, replaced Jose Mourinho, and as well has transformed their season and made them compete. I think that's a really cool moment for him, and I at least wanted to highlight it. Couple other things. Completely missed the Olympico by James Ward-Prowse against West Ham. There's a lot of games that we watch, and you're going to miss a couple through the cracks, and I missed that one. So my bad on that. James Ward-Prowse. What a corner that was. So I wanted to mention that because I couldn't believe I was pretty pissed that I missed it. I didn't even see it on Twitter or anything. But, I mean, that guy, best set piece taker I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's unbelievable from a dead ball. I mean, I don't know nothing else to say other than I don't want to say he's a dead ball merchant because he's he's a good player. But I mean, every time that there's a free kick or a corner, you're going to get some sort of opportunity, and I think that's all you ask for. And yeah, just a little curler to the back post finds its way in.
Absolutely, and that's what West Ham do most. And so let's see if they score a set piece against Bayer Leverkusen, and that could be the difference in the match. Coming later today, Liverpool also play Atalanta. We both have -1.5 in that. If you're a betting man, you have Roma money line as well. So wanted to just mention our cards in terms of the Europa League action. And the last thing I wanted to get to was
I have AC Milan money line.
Sorry, AC Milan money line, my fault. And the last thing I wanted to get to was Everton's 2-point deduction here. They are now 2 points from Luton and Forest, who Luton is in 18th in the relegation zone. 2 points is not a lot. Luton do have to play Forest and Everton before the season ends. So do you think that we could see a different relegation zone, in the coming months, or do you think this will all be the same? You're muted. Still muted. While you figure that out, we're still having some technical difficulties. So sorry about that. But yeah, no, that is gonna be a wonderful, not only Premier League title race, but it's also going to be a wonderful relegation race in the Premier League. So looking forward to that. And just a couple other games that are going on. I mentioned Bayern versus West Ham today, and then the last Europa League is Benfica Marseille. Benfica off a big loss. Marseille has been struggling a little bit as of late, but for the most part, they've been good. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how these matches go, and they're all played at the same time, which is kind of a bummer because I'd like to enjoy all of them, but definitely all eyes on Liverpool for me. But we'll go ahead and get to predictions since we have a wonderful weekend of football to play. So let's see here. Starting out with Arsenal Villa. Arsenal off a tough draw at the Emirates. They do have a home game against Villa. Do you think Arsenal are going to be able to get a result here?
You'd like to think so. It's an important game for them. I mean, I expect them to have a bounce back performance. They don't lose games, I know they drew against Bayern, but it's a big game for them again. And every game in the Prem will be a big game for everybody contending down the stretch. So I lay in Arsenal. Give me them 3-1.
Arsenal win 3-1. I'm going to say a 2-2 draw here. I think Arsenal might give up some points here within the crucial title race here. Newcastle versus Spurs, another good one. Spurs, they are 10 points back from the top three, but they do play Arsenal, Liverpool, and I think Manchester City before the season ends. So this could be a big win to get them on track to go and maybe make some noise here late in the final stretch of the Premier League. Do you think Newcastle get points? Do you think Spurs get points? What do you think happens?
Early game on Saturday at Newcastle? I don't know, dog.
The Toon Army.
New Newcastle does have a lot of injuries still. God. Let's go 2-2.
2-2. Oh, you stole my score line. I was thinking that. I'm going to go 3-2 Spurs. I think Spurs maybe should be able to get the 3 points here, hopefully, with Newcastle's absolutely injured back line here. I think a sunny goal is imminent here. A game that we care deeply about in terms of some of our futures that we put, but Atletico versus Girona here. Atletico could basically keep up with Girona and maybe even leapfrog them if they get a result here. Do you think Atletico are going to be able to get it done at home at the Met?
Oh man, you know me about the Met.
Still having those technical difficulties, so sorry about that, guys. But I'll go ahead and I think that Atletico win 2-1 here. I think it'll be a fun game, and we should, be absolutely treated to a great performance here. I think Harrison, also believes in Atletico as we have a future on them. And then Athletic Bilbao versus Villarreal, another big one to see if Atletico Bilbao can keep pace with Atletico Madrid and keep up with Girona. They do play Villarreal, which is not going to be an easy game here. So I'm going to go ahead and do a stamp of approval for Athletic Bilbao to win. And going to the Bundesliga, we mentioned Bayer Leverkusen will play Werder Bremen, but Gladbach play Dortmund here. And Dortmund need to keep pace if they want to get top 4. So I'll go ahead and pencil in a Dortmund win here against Gladbach because Gladbach are just not a great opponent. And then you have Stuttgart versus Frankfurt. Oh, there we go. He's back. Technical difficulties. It's all good. How do you think this Atletico Girona game is going to shake out? Oh, he's long gone, folks. The technical difficulty bug has completely gotten to him. He's lost his head. We don't know what's happened here. So sorry, Harrison. But yeah, and then Stuttgart versus Frankfurt. I think Stuttgart are going to be able to get the result here, and I think they'll be able to keep their amazing run this season in the Bundesliga. But that is all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Full-Time Roundup, and we will catch you on Sunday. Fun guest too, by the way.